Welcome to part 1 of the series of tutorials for constructing the app which I like to call City Quest or City Spell. As always, we are starting from a written guide, and also there's a teacher's pack to be downloaded from your course module. And this time I am starting from the instructions because the setup will be a little different from the other assignments in this course, because we will be building the project in the built-in render pipe, not URP. And the reason is, after a lot of experiments, specific looks, effects, shaders will look way better in the built-in pipeline. So just like in the industry, we choose the best pipeline, that rendering pipeline, for our purposes. So we're not going to duplicate the empty VR template that we created earlier in this course or other courses, because chances are that it's a URP one. We will start a new project and turn it into pretty much like an empty VR, but for the built-in render pipe, and then continue from there. So in the hub, I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to start a new project. I'm going to name it with my last name and the word city. And I'm going to make sure to use the 3D built-in render pipeline, not Universal 3D. If it's the first time you're using the built-in render pipeline, you might have to download it. So let's do that. So I'm starting a new project. I am going to call it with my last name and city, and I'm going to add the word for video because I have a lot of versions of it. I am going to find a good location to save it. But before I click create project, I'm going to make sure that I'm not using 3D, Universal 3D Core. I am looking for the built-in render pipeline, and I'm looking for it, and I can't find it until I probably would scroll down, and here it is, the 3D render pipeline. And you can see that it has a little download icon, which means I have to click and download this template. It'll take a second, and it took like, a fraction of a second. And then when I'm sure that I got the right name, the right place, and everything, we're going to create project. Remember, while it's doing that, the main differences between the render pipelines have to do with the way it renders light and the way it renders materials. For this project, the way we're going to render lights and the way we're going to render shaders and materials, the built-in one just looks better and performs better. Great, so we have our project. It's totally empty, of course. Next thing we're going to do, because right now it's not even ready for VR, we're going to change the game window aspect to 16 by 9. We do that very often. So instead of free aspect, we're going to change it to 16 by 9. That will give us a better approximation of what we're going to see through the quest. Then in edit, project settings, player, we're going to make sure that the name of the project it becomes like a nice clean identification for the APK. Edit, project settings, player. Usually it takes on the name of the product from the name of the folder, but not necessarily. See, right now it's default company, whatever, for identification. Easiest way to give it a nice clean name is to uncheck and check. Actually, let me make sure that I give it Benezer for vid, not default company, but let's make it my company. Then here it is. I don't need city for vid with a dash because there was an extra space. So again, do a nice clean name that reflects like a cleaned up name of the of my project name. And of course, file, save, and save project. Next thing we're going to do is to set the time. This is something that we usually do when we create a blank template, but this time we're not relying on a blank template, we're creating ourselves. The most important thing is the fixed time step and the maximum allowed time step. So the way we achieve that might be a good review of how we did it in the past, is in the settings, we go to time, and instead of 0.02, we don't need to type this big, decimal fraction. 1/72. 1 divided by 72, because that's the default frame rate. That gives us the right fixed time step. This is the amount of time that will pass every frame. Maximum allowed time step, 1 divided by 3, a third of a second. And then the other numbers are not as important, but we might as well do them. Time scale 1 and maximum particle time step 0.3. 0.03. Is it, or 0.3? 0.3. Then, very important, to turn it into a project that's ready for VR, we're going to go to the package management, asset store, make sure that we're logged in. We're going to search for MetaXR Core SDK and install it. Now, another way of doing this would be if you are using a computer where you already downloaded it. Let's see if we can do that. Rather than going to the asset store, I can just copy that name, go to Window, Package Management, My Assets, searching My Assets. This will actually bring up what I have in the store already. It's like, basically it searched the store and then I can install it. Or I could just go to the asset store, download and install. Either or. Right now, as I am recording this, the latest version of the MetaXR Core SDK is 76.0.1. Very likely that by the time you do this project, the version will be higher. In any case, I'm installing whatever's the highest version. Good. If it asks to restart Unity, I will restart Unity. Good. Another thing we will have to do is, just like we did before, is go to XR Plugin Management and install the XR Plugin Management. Once it does, we're going to enable OpenXR. We used to do Oculus, but it's deprecated. OpenXR, and that installs that too. If we don't, it'll remind us that it needs it. Enable MetaXR feature set, yes. Then, if there are any issues, we're going to try to fix all of them. Sometimes it takes more than one click. And just like it says, if there's some, let's call it stubborn issues, see how, it took like 3 clicks to clear up all of them. If there are any stubborn issues, you just let them be, because they will be resolved later on. And in this case, it's just like a warning or a notice. It's not a must. So we did this, we did this, we did the XR plugin management, and also if issues remain to be fixed or stubborn, skip them. Then we're going to go to the MetaXR project checker. And if there are any issues here, we're going to fix all of them. Again, if there's any stubborn ones, we're just going to try once or twice and then let them be. Same, we're going to do that on the Android and MetaQuest settings, and also on the standalone. And we're also not going to forget, so we just did this, to change our build platform to MetaQuest. MetaQuest is just a subset of Android. I tried it and we can also build straight to Android, but since we have a MetaQuest, we're going to build to MetaQuest. To change the build platform, we will go to File, Build Profiles. A new project by default builds to, whatever platform, desktop platform you're on. I'm on Mac, but we're going to change it to MetaQuest because we just installed. We're able to do that because we installed the Meta SDK. And switch platform might take a second or two. If it says cannot build player while editing is importing assets, it's because it's compiling scripts right now. We can just let it do it in the background while we move on. One more thing that's pretty important, especially for this, is to go to Edit, Project Settings, Player, the Android tab, Other Settings, to scroll down. It's a little tricky to find it, and find something called Active Input Handling and make sure that it's set to both. Here are the project settings. Here's Player. Here's Other Settings, and I'm going to scroll down quite a lot. Identification. Yep. I'm going to scroll down. This is just, taking care of something we already took care of. I'm going to scroll down until I see the word either old or both. Here it is, or new. Active Input Handling. If it says new, I'm going to change it to both. If it says anything other than both, I'm going to change it to both. This will enable us also to test using, the reason we're using both is so it's sensitive to the input from the controllers, but also we can test it while we're developing with keyboard keys in Unity. Apply. It will either ask you to restart or restart. Good. Good. I can close windows I don't need. File. Save. So we're using both the old and the new, even though once in a while it tells you that the old one is not recommended, it will still work fine. Console clear. It tells me that I still have things recommended to do in the meta settings. We're going to keep checking that once in a while. Good and good. It's all clear. Project validation on the Meta XR management, all clear. Good. We can proceed. The next thing we're going to do is take care of quality. And after experimenting step 21, I forgot. From the course module, we're going to download, unzip, and copy the whole folder called City Teacher Assets 6 and paste it into your assets. So I'm going to do that. So City Teacher Assets 6, I already unzipped it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to open the project. Benezer City for Vid, open assets, and paste. It's about 0.5 GB. It's pretty big. It's got a lot of stuff in it, which of course means that when I go back to Unity, it'll take a second for it to import. The next thing to do, like I said, is to take care of the quality, and I highlighted in yellow the important changes that we're going to make. So, in Unity, first of all, I'm going to wait till it's done importing all the teacher's assets because there's quite a lot of them. It'll take a couple more seconds. We're almost done. While it's doing that, I don't think I can do anything else. Okay, good. And if it comes up with some kind of, warnings, I'm going to, in the console, I'm going to clear them. So edit, project settings, quality. First of all, the quality of standalone is not that important. The quality of the Android and Meta needs to be medium, so I'm going to click on medium. I'm also going to pull down this menu and tell both of them to be medium. Purists are going to actually disable all the rest of them and make sure that it's only medium. I think it's enough just to make sure that it's, green. The other thing I'm going to do is anti-aliasing instead of disabled. Anti-aliasing is the smoothing of edges. When it's disabled, it increases performance, but everything looks very jagged. So I'm going to give it a minimum level of multi-sampling, of smoothing. And because we're not really going to be using like high quality resolutions, half resolution is going to look better, and that's also going to make it lighter on the performance. Let's see if there's any other thing that I highlighted. Yeah, so medium, anti-aliasing times 2 multi-sampling, and half resolution. Finally, it says also scroll down to the bottom of the quality screen. Let me add an end there. At the very bottom, you will find skin weights and set to 1 bone. Again, this is like, those of us that are gamers, this is kind of the equivalent of making it lower poly. So if it says 2 bones, I'm going to make it 1 bone. And then File, Save, and Save Project. Let's do a few more steps before we call this done, and go to the next part. Hide this, and finally we can build the main scene. Create a new scene, a basic one. We're going to call it main with a capital M. As you are guessing, it's probably going to be up. Its name is going to appear in a script, so that's why it needs to be case sensitive. What kind? A basic built-in, and we're going to save it into the scenes folder, and then delete the main camera and replace with the OVR player controller. We've done things like that in the past. So we're not going to use the sample scene. We're going to go File, New Scene, Basic Built-in, Create, File, Save, Name, Main with a capital M, and save it into our Scenes folder. Good. Then, as we have done more than once before, delete the 2D main camera, and instead we're going to go to Project, Packages, Meta, XR Core SDK, the prefabs, and one of those prefabs is the OVR player controller. Remember, this is like a camera with an engine, a camera where we can use the left joystick to move around. So we're going to drag it in and reset its transform. And in the instructions, it says that basically all of its settings are going to be reset, except a few choice ones. And I'm going to point them out. Let me move this so I can do this side by side. Okay. First of all, the height, 1.8. We've done this in the past too. It resembles, the height of a average tall person. Then everything else is reset. The slope limit means like how steep the slope that it can climb. And instead of 45 degrees, I'm going to give it 100 degrees, which means it can climb pretty much almost like vertically, or even more than that. Also, I am going to give it an acceleration of 0.2. All the other numbers are pretty much the same. Yes, they are. An acceleration of 0.2, just, so we're basically flying faster through the city. Everything else pretty much stays the same. Oh, and one more thing. The gravity modifier is going to be 0.2. Gravity modifier is 1. What does that mean? That if I jump from a roof, I'm going to fall down like a feather pretty slowly, rather than, a thud. Anything else that I need to take care of? Probably not. File, Save, and finally, and I don't think this step will surprise anyone because many of our projects started with that or had that step, is to create a plane. Let's see if I'm not forgetting anything. So we gave it the OVR camera, the OVR player controller, sorry, and then all of these settings, then plane, and X and Z of 100. In other words, it's basically 1,000 by 1,000 because a plane is already 10 by 10. So 10 times 100 is 1,000. And we're going to give it a material. And the material is going to have an albedo. We're back to the terminology albedo because we're in the built-in rendering pipe, which is called cobblestone O2 plus a little bit of a color, no smoothness, and no metallic. So let's do all of that. Right click, 3D object, plane, reset, 100x, 100z. The y doesn't matter because it's a plane. So it's like very, very big, bigger than we'll ever need it to be. In our assets, if we don't have a My Materials folder, I'll definitely create one because we will have a lot of them. Oops, I created a material and wanted to create a folder. My Materials. And not that the name of the material matters, but I'm going to create a material called ground or plane or something like that. The important thing is that I'm giving it to the plane as albedo using, by zooming out, I'm arranging it alphabetically, the one called cobblestone. Here it is, cobblestone albedo. It is, way too big, so it tells you to change the tiling to 200 by 200 instead of 1 by 1, 200 by 200, and then it's back to being like, the scale that we want it to look like. It also has a normal map, which is cobblestone normal. No, not clip, sorry. Actually, cobblestone bump? No, it doesn't. Actually, let's see. I don't think it does. I'll return it to being none and look at the... Yeah, I think I'm not giving it a bump. Yeah, no normal. Yeah, I am giving it a height map and an occlusion instead of a normal map. Height map will be that cobblestone height. Cobblestone bump. Same thing with the occlusion. Good. I can change the color a little bit to be a little more yellowish or something like this. It's too much, a little more towards white. Yeah, I like that. Kind of sand color. We can always change that later. Yeah, kind of like, sand color. The important thing is that it's opaque, and I'm bringing metallic all the way down, smoothness all the way down, and the height map and the occlusion all the way up. Everything else stays the same. So the metallic all the way down, the smoothness all the way down, because I don't need the floor to be smooth, height map all the way up, and occlusion all the way up. And it gives it that feeling that, when light hits it, then it's got a little bit of a 3D-ish look. Kind of like what I would do with a normal, but in this case it has to do more with the reflection of light. The next step has to do with bringing in our city. And I'm going to do that on the next part of the tutorial.